there. And so in any case, on Sunday, December 20th, was the ordination ceremony at the Seminary of Pareja, Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is a summary of what we have been informed. It comes to me from Father Trincado. The sermon preached by Bishop Filet on that occasion. So the sermon, of course, we preached in Spanish. He recalled that in the audience that he had with Pope Benedict XVI on August 29, 2005, Benedict XVI scolded him, saying, "You behave as vague clerics, leaning on a subjective state of necessity, and you do not realize the canonical irregularity that you represent. For you are recognized as Catholics, should solve problems, or at least you should try solving them." And Bishop Filet said, he responded, "Holy Father, you are right." Then to explain the necessity, Bishop Filet made a comparison with a natural disaster and blocked firefighters and justified the action of the priests with the norms of canon law. If an Orthodox, an excommunicated, or a suspended, or a schismatic can give sacraments to the dying, why not an SSPX priest? The SSPX has supplied jurisdiction. We should never be vague clergy. The problem of jurisdiction demonstrates the importance of being recognized canonically. We cannot say that it is not important to have the Catholic seal. We must have the seal of approval of Rome. Hence our interest to keep in touch with the Roman authorities for obtaining that seal, as it always has the founder, has always desired the founder. I never wanted to cut with Rome, therefore always maintain contacts. The official church is the visible church. It is the Catholic Church. So Bishop Filet said in the sermon just a couple of days ago that one of the points here that they're comparing our legality of the SSPX priest. You know, if a priest leaves the priesthood, becomes a Satanist, gets married, has 25 kids, abandons the Catholic faith, it doesn't matter. If someone's dying, that priest can anoint. And so Bishop Filet says, well, if a priest who left the priesthood, who's a Satanist and does all evil things, can anoint somebody, then why not the SSPX priest? So that we're being compared to a priest who left the priesthood, a schismatic priest, a priest who became completely pagan, and in the danger of death, that priest can give the sacraments to the dying, and confession and anointing. So the Bishop Filet says that's a comparison of us. So he no longer understands the state of necessity in the church. We're not compared to those priests. We are fulfilling the necessity of the crisis in the church right now. Souls need the true faith without compromise, and they need the true sacraments. And therefore the priest not only has a jurisdiction supplied by the church, but an obligation to provide the sacraments, and not only in the state of death, not only in the time of dying. You're not in danger of dying today, unless the black helicopter blows up the house. But the fact is, you're not visibly in the danger of dying right now. And so, whereas, see, if I was a priest that left the priesthood, or if there was a priest that became a Satanist or whatever, you couldn't go to that priest's mass. You couldn't hear that priest. You couldn't go to that priest in normal circumstances, only for confession and anointing, in periculo mortis, an extreme case. And so it's a bad understanding, a very bad example, and how important it is to be recognized by the seal of the church. And this Bishop Filet has been talking about since 2012 in a visible way, but more and more so. Remember, Pope Francis gets worse and worse. Remember one of the things that they said, the conservatives of the SSPX, when Pope Francis became the Pope. Well, don't worry, as long as he's Pope, there'll never be a deal with Rome. As long as he's Pope, there's never going to be a problem. Well, not only have things continued since Benedict XVI to Francis, they've accelerated. Now, don't forget that he's a third Pope. It was first I heard in 2001, we've got to be united with Rome because John Paul II is getting old. And he wants to rectify the problem of the SSPX before he dies. And it's urgent because the Pope is getting angry. I mean, the Pope is getting old and he's dying. So it's urgent. We must do this before John Paul II died. Then he died. Benedict XVI, it's urgent. We must do this Benedict XVI. Now he quit. Now it's urgent with Pope Francis. We've got 15 years now of urgency. And there's a different reason why it's urgent. Because Pope John Paul II is dying. Because Pope Benedict is working really hard. He wants to take this very quickly. And then now because Pope Francis is, the Pope. And so, we've got to work with him. So the modernism continues. That's why it's so dangerous to continue in the mainstream of the society, because this is every day now. This is just no longer, there's not even an uproar. If this statement had been made in 2012, there would be a massive uproar. This didn't even make the newspapers. Nobody cares. One reason why nobody cares is because everybody knows, including the guys on the inside, the conservative guys on the inside of SPX, that the deal is a done deal. And that we've already given in on the faith. We've already lost our truth, already lost our innocence, already lost our faith. It's already gone. So who cares about the day of the burial? The death of the SSPX is complete. The day of the burial, is irrelevant. Is irrelevant. And so that's all that's being arranged. And remember, this deal is a distraction. It's unimportant. But here again, what's important is the doctrine behind it. We must be approved by the official modernist Rome. And that's what the founder always wanted. Now, anybody who knows SSPX 101 knows that that's not what Archbishop Lefebvre always wanted. What he wanted was Rome to come back to the faith. See, when we know we're standing on the certitude of the faith. Remember one of the attacks made against us? Same attack made against Father Hannafin in Kentucky when he was the pastor there. Same attack made against Archbishop Lefebvre. Same attack made against all SSPX priests and traditional priests previous to the to recent times. Do you think you're the only one that holds the truth? You mean you think you're the only one that knows the truth? No, I don't know the numbers of those that know the truth, but I know that I know the truth. And anybody that knows differently knows wrongly. I know that you cannot compromise with modernism. I know you cannot accept the indulged Mass. I know that it's wrong to go to the mainstream SSPX Masses because it's a compromise of faith. I know that it's wrong to go to the indult. I know it's wrong to go to the Sedevacantist Mass. Does that mean you're the only one? I don't know. That's not my problem. My problem is to know what the error is and what the truth is. As far as the quantity of people who know the truth, that's not important. That's God's problem. We, of course, want to spread it to as many people as possible. And there's another point, I'm going to mention maybe in the sermon tomorrow, but in the gospel today, not the gospel, the last gospel, remember, because the last gospel was the first gospel, the actual last gospel was a different gospel. And in the gospel, what happened? It's the one about Herod. The three kings go to Herod because the star disappears when they arrive in Israel. They saw it till they got in Israel. They couldn't see it anymore. And then when they got in Israel, they had to go and ask, where is the king going to be born? The star disappeared. They went to Herod, and what does it say? And Herod inquired diligently. And he gathered the three kings secretly. And he told them to go to the place where the child was laid and record everything and come back and tell them all about it. That's called pockets of resistance, secret communication of the truth. Why did Herod do things secretly? Whenever you do things secretly, it's for an evil purpose, not a good one. And it doesn't lead to the truth or to good. If he lived in Israel, he knew the roads better than the three kings did. He knew how to get to Bethlehem. It was only about 60 miles away, by the way. So why didn't he go on a little trip over to Bethlehem? He wouldn't walk across a street for Jesus Christ. He wouldn't walk across the palace to see Christ. So what did he do? He inquired secretly, diligently, And this is the problem of modern education, of modern academia. They want to study diligently, and they want to study eagerly and secretly all the secrets of nature. They want to study secretly all the things happening. Bishop Villay wants to study secretly what's going on with Rome. We want to study secretly what's going on in the church. We can't make too much noise. We have to study secretly and diligently. It's also the era of Bishop Williamson right now. Secretly and diligently. We cannot study the faith secretly and diligently. We are not in the time of persecution. We've mentioned many times recently, if I wanted to say Mass on the White House lawn, I could do it. You have to go through the idiot process of red tape and permits. But eventually I could say Mass on the White House lawn. It's legal. We're not yet in the time of persecution. We cannot be secret about the faith. And there in the gospel today, secretly, diligently, inquiring in great detail the time. Why did Herod inquire in great detail the time? To guess the age of the child, so he would know about what age to kill. That's the reason why some fathers of the church say, like St. Augustine yesterday, he says that the star appeared on December 25th. And the 3 kings were on top of a mountain. And that 3 stars appeared in the sky, and they came together to form one star. And the 3 kings saw it. And they decided to follow the star, and 1 year later, 6 months, 1 year later, they arrived in Bethlehem. Other saints say that the star appeared maybe at the time of the conception of March 25th. And then the kings gathered together and traveled so that they arrived on January 6th, only a few days after Easter, after Christmas. So you have a different schedule by depending upon the saint. But they're responding and traveling. The others are secretly reacting. And that's what we can't have that secret, diligent studying in precise time. Why is so important the time? So that Herod would say, kill every boy child from 2 years old and down. And that's why St. Jerome says, we know it had to be less than a year between the star's apparition and the coming of the Magi, because Herod would take no chances. He'd give himself a big cushion. Kill everybody that was a little boy. Anybody that looks like they're about 2 years old. They look small enough, kill them. Just to be on the safe side. And so he killed every child, every boy, 2 years old and younger. Inquire diligently, but why? Many people inquire diligently. They want to study more. Very often when you want to study more, it's not because you don't know the truth, it's because you want an excuse for not knowing the truth. Because if you know the truth, you have to respond to it. Like Herod on Good Friday. What is truth? Then he turns his back on the truth and walks away. He asks, our Lord says, I am the truth. Then when he gets the answer, he asks a question. That's another sign of the presence of the devil. When you get an answer, you ask a question. Normally you get an answer, you memorize it. When you put it into practice. But the devil, when he gets an answer, he asks a question. So, in any case, you better back then, I suppose. Happy Christmas, Mother. Did you stay awake?
Yes.
You can make your mouth you open it up. Okay, is there any sacred coffee heading around anywhere? Or any kind of drink?
Brewing, Father.
Okay, alright, good.
Father, when you say Bishop Williamson is conducting in secret, or what specifically are you referring to?
Okay, what he is, one of the, there's 2 things he's against in the resistance. One is organization. That's his most public about that. 2 is noise. You know, one of the points of Bishop Williamson is, thou shalt not make noise. One of the problems of Padre Pfeiffer is that he makes noise. So, you know, to walk into a room, things aren't breaking, and, you know, windows and doors, something happens. And so he doesn't like the noise. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So that we need to be quiet. For instance, when he travels around, when he came here to St. Catherine's, for instance, he didn't come to St. Catherine's, he went to secretly visit Father Groner, who was only found out by accident that he was coming. Right? And he arranged his trip to Brazil, his trip to Mexico, his trip to Canada, all in advance. It was only discovered afterwards that he was going to be here, and they asked him, well, can you do confirmations? And at first he wasn't really going to. But then he just changed his mind and said, well, okay, I'll be 25 minutes away, so for 2 or 3 days, so I might as well stop in and do the formations. But he wants to operate quietly. And that's why, for instance, he's there in Kent and, in Broadstairs, not as a priory, but as a quiet place where people can secretly... Remember he said in his first liaison comments about the new building, where priests can come and discreetly visit the bishop. Right? Discreetly. So this discreetly it's kind of in his nature to want to operate. He wasn't that way before 2009, at least not visibly. But since 2009, he's been that way big time. Although he always has been discreet, he's always been friends with Jewish rabbis, with St. Economist priests, with Rabbi Schiller used to come to the seminary and give talks. He was a young Jewish rabbi in New York City. He used to come and give talks about, because he was, some of the Jews are actually mad at the Jews, It's not just the Goy that are mad at the Jews. It was Jews that are mad at the Jews. And Rabbi Schiller, he was a Jew. He loved being a Jew. He was proud of his Judaism. But he didn't like Zionism. He didn't like, this New World Order stuff. So he would come and give talks at the seminary about, kind of like a Jews for Jesus thing, He was not Christian at all, but he didn't like the Holocaust, what do you call it? They call it, Jews have a name for it, Holocaust machine. It's a money-making machine. Many Jews don't like it. I think it's because they're not in the, they're not in the receiving end of that.
Use the word industry?
Yeah, Holocaust industry. So the Jews have a name for it. They have a name for it. Holocaust industry, something like that. Yeah. So, and I think Rabbi Schiller was one of those. And so he's always had these secret friends and quiet. He's kind of always had that. I think part of it is because he's an eccentric individual. And he's always had those friends that have come from all different sides. But now that he's in the public in a leadership position, he doesn't want to see a failure. He doesn't want to see a collapse. So he wants to operate quietly and secretly, and he always has escape. He always has escape plans. Like, instead of having windows and walls, what are the walls or the windows? And they're all exits, and then what's the windows? The actual wall. So he's got escape, spots everywhere. And but sometimes, there's not a time for that. There's not a time for that. And for instance, he's against the noise. He's against the going after the sheep, like he told me when I was in London the last time. He said, we cannot have a priest in our times. We cannot have a priest who goes after the lost at any cost. We cannot have this. We must have a balanced priest who just is ordered, doesn't overstretch his bounds, but you cannot have one who's going after the lost sheep. So he's against that. He's against any kind. He has a reputation for being extreme, but in fact, he's against all extremism. That's why, for instance, we've got the Holocaust. He says that evidence says that there was no 6 million Jews. He doesn't say no 6 million Jews were killed. The evidence indicates that no 6 million Jews were killed. And you shouldn't be an extremist and say it's absolutely certain that they were killed. And then you follow the evidence. The evidence indicates that they weren't 6 million killed. But if you show me evidence that there were 6 million, then I'll change my mind. See, that's his personality. Whereas most would say, like Ernst Zundel would say, there were not 6 million killed, period. Finished. Any further questions? Forget it. Impossible. I already investigated, I already found the answer, and that's it, period. Finished. But Bishop Williamson doesn't have that approach. I remember in the seminary, we had and 1 year below me was a Puerto Rican named Paul Roman. He got ordained a priest in the fraternity of St. Peter, and now he's a regular Novus Ordo priest. He says both Latin Mass and New Mass now. And Paul Roman, when Father Bishop Williamson mentioned the Holocaust, he goes, Bishop, you're crazy. He would say that in class, Well, Mr. Roman, you might be right. but you must read the evidence. So he'd read in the Ernst Zundel, report on the gas chambers. And then Paul Roman, he was a, what do you call that, pharmacist. So his handwriting was horrible, right? So Bishop Williamson would make him, every Wednesday, he would sit in Bishop Williamson's office and do penmanship. So he would sit in the office and do penmanship. While he was doing penmanship, Bishop Williamson was reading to him the Ernst Zundel report, the proof that there was no Holocaust. Would you believe now, Paul? So he tried to convince him, but he never was angry that he didn't believe. And he never punished him for not believing either. He just let him go. And then Paul ended up leaving anyway, but not because of, he was never kicked out by the bishop, never punished by the bishop, never threatened by the bishop. He was just trying to get him to agree because of the evidence. I think he cared less about the evidence. He cared less. And so, I remember that was back in the early, about 1990, something like that. So his style is an academic, he's a teacher for all these generations. And so a teacher style he has, which is a little different than the warrior style. The warrior, you gotta, when you shoot somebody, that means they're dead. Right? And when you get shot, that means you're dead. Whereas in a test, you get an F, you can always redo another test. It's a very different, you can redo the grade, you can, so it's a different mentality of how to deal with difficulties.
When we try to give him the benefit of the doubt, we think that he is just trying to make us think.
Right.
But then he says some things, and we have to question what he's thinking.
Well, the thing is, he's been clear about the fact that he's against organization. He's against the seminary. He's been clear about that from the very beginning. And he doesn't think Archbishop Lefebvre did the right thing when he established a hierarchical structure. Too much authority in it. So he's been clear about that. It's just that people don't want to believe that he believes that. So they're projecting their desires into him, but he's never ever said. For instance, he said many times, "I will not be the leader of a movement."
Yeah.
But in fact he is. Because if you don't agree with him in his non-movement, and he's going to use his authority to break you apart. You see? So if he really doesn't believe in the movement, let the movement be on its own, then let us be on our own. No problem. So because, see, you can't change the nature of things. He's still a bishop, whether he believes it or not, knows it or not, or likes it or not. He's still a bishop. Just like the Pope is a Pope if he doesn't know it. And he is affecting the church, whether he likes it or not, or knows it or not. And so Bishop Williamson, the four bishops do the same thing. They're affecting the church. Bishop Tissier is doing wrong by doing nothing in Chicago. He's affecting the church because he's supposed to be out there doing his duty as a bishop. Bishop Fillet is supposed to be doing his duty, and he's not. Bishop Gallaretta is not, and Bishop Williamson is struggling in between. So so meanwhile we have to continue. The truth is what's going to end at the end. Is what's going to win in the end. Even, and so we still have to have a seminary. The bishop doesn't agree with it. He visits and smiles, but he doesn't agree with it. We don't have any certainty for our future, none whatsoever. And the young men know that. And it has stopped some men. We have about 20 men that have passed through the doors. There would have been easily 40. At least more than 30. If they thought that there was some real support for Bishop Williamson. This year, 7 men, Father LaRue announced it, 7 people took the promise of the SSPX, their first promises. That's the smallest number of seminarians ever.
Yeah.
When I took my promises in 1989, there were about 15 of us. 15 or 19, I forget which, but it was 15 or 19. Father Hugo was his class, it was 2 years before me. It was about same, 15 or 19.
Late 90s was like 30 sometimes.
Yeah. Well, not the first ones. Normally it would be 50 or whatever renewing. But I'm talking about the very first, which is only one class. Right? So, normally 20, and that's just in Winona, but the whole society would be about 40 or something. But here were 7 in Winona. This is very bad. I've never seen it that small before. And 7 took their perpetual. They mentioned about 7 priests coming back to Alma Mater and doing their perpetual. Now that's unusual. We never have them come back and do that. And also, we've always, the other interesting thing is that I think we never really, our big day is taken to cast. December the 8th is our principal day, but we don't ever do anything extra special for it. And I think one reason Archbishop Lefebvre did that is to keep things in perspective. You were already under obedience anyway when you were in the seminary. You were already under the superior anyway. And this solemn promise that we make to our superior, it's not like a vow, though it is a great obligation attached to it. And so the wisdom in not overemphasizing it. It's very much overemphasized now. When I was there, even though we always had a great honor to finally belong to Society of St. Pius X officially, but it was not, congratulations, and that's the end of it. But now they're making a much bigger deal about it because the new principal virtue equals obedience. And they're emphasizing it also because, see, you belong to SSPX, but the SSPX is not regular. So we need to be regularized. So it becomes a tool of deceiving the seminarians. See? And that's kind of, it becomes a tool to deceive the seminarians, and that's a really major problem. Yeah.
What's the rationale behind not having more priests? I mean, the seminary.
Okay, Bishop Williamson, he's talked about it actually for more than 20 years, but especially in recent years. Grace builds on nature. This is the Bishop Williamson thesis. Grace builds on nature. So the supernatural is like something up here that's like a crane that grabs onto the natural and picks it up. So if the natural is so broken apart, the supernatural will grab onto it and it's not going to pick up anything. It's just going to fall apart. So therefore, in order for the supernatural to pick up the natural has to be strengthened.
Yes.
Okay? Now, and so that's his basic thesis. And the natural has been so destroyed in the modern world that the supernatural can't pick it up. Now, what's the truth or error of that statement?
Despair.
What is it?
It's after God.
It sounds good, but it's crap. Now, why is it crap?
Because
What?
God calls manifestation
Anything.
Because it's very simple.
Yeah, God can do anything.
God can do anything. Like one example that we mentioned many times is that girl in England. I'm guessing she died. She'd be dead now. She was a little girl who was born with no pupils. She only has the whites of her eyes. She doesn't have an eye. Just basically a white blob here and a white blob there. She went to Padre Pio in the 1950s, and guess what happened? But he never gave her eyes.
No?
No. She still had a white blob here and a white blob there. No pupil, no cornea, no lens.
So the nature was still demolished, but he gave her vision?
So she could see, she watches TV too, by the way. So she watches TV, she reads the newspaper, she drives the car, and she has no eyes. Just two blobs. And if you block her blobs, she can't see. It shouldn't matter, right? Because she doesn't have any eyes. So you see, God can easily fix the problem, you see. Just like when St. Peter walked on the water. In theory, you got to have a boat. St. Raymond Benefort, he got on a coat, right? He got on his jacket and went across the ocean. So the fact is that even though grace builds on nature, the very simple explanation is the God who made supernature is the same God that made nature. And that nature is created out of, what's the word? Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? It's created out of nothing. And guess what supernature is made out of? Also nothing. And the supernatural is built, infused in the natural, and so it's actually, at face value, when you don't think about it, it sounds reasonable. You see what I mean? It sounds reasonable. Grace builds on nature, you got to be able to have this crane. If it falls apart, you can't pick it up. At face value, without thinking more about it, it sounds reasonable. But in fact, it's not. It's not. But there is, however, some natural required, because the supernatural requires it. For instance, only a male can be a priest. Only a living person can be baptized. So there are some natural requirements, but God provides them. God makes sure that they'll be there. And there's another problem. If they weren't there, then what will that mean? Who's guilty? Who's responsible for the damnation of men? If the nature is so corrupted, if my nature is so corrupted that I cannot be saved by grace, then is it my fault if I go to hell? No, whose fault is it?
God's.
It's God's fault, right? And that's one of the points of St. Augustine. When Adam complained to God, God gave to Adam 3 duties. Name the animals, take care of the garden, rule the earth. He went and did those duties. He came back to God and said that he complained that he was lonely. If he complained about those 3 duties, God just created Adam. So if God gave Adam the work to do and not the means to do it, who made the mistake? God. God doesn't make mistakes. So therefore, man can rule, name the animals, take care of the garden, and rule the earth without woman. But there's something he can't do. The duty that God didn't mention to Adam right away, which was to increase and multiply. After he created Eve, then he said, increase and multiply, and that work cannot be done without the union of man and woman. And so a woman in her nature is a mother, man in his nature is a worker. There are 2 different things that they do in society. A man can be without a woman can never be without a man. And so there's the whole creation, and God made it that way from the very beginning. And so God made everything perfect, and they all fit together. And so it really isn't right to say that the thesis of Bishop Williamson is nature is falling apart, and we have to strengthen nature. It's true we have to strengthen nature, but if we get overemphasis on the nature part, then we lose the truth. Because God uses, he said it many times, he uses the weak to confound the strong. And so the ignorant to confound the intelligent, and so on. Happens all the time. And so even though God has used, St. John Bosco, for instance, was a mega intelligence. He was a mega brain, right? Many of the saints were mega brains. They were born with naturally incredible intellects and God's supernaturalism. Others were born idiots, like St. Albert the Great. Albert was born an idiot. And he ran away from the monastery. And when he ran away from the monastery because he couldn't pass his classes, Our Lady appeared to him and said, "Where are you going, Albert?" And I can't take the classes out of here. He said, "No, go back. And I will make them easy for you." And then he became the teacher of St. Thomas Aquinas. How did he get that intelligence? Because of the Blessed Virgin Mary strengthened his mind. John Bosco had it naturally. St. Thomas Aquinas had it naturally. And it was perfected by the supernatural. But not everyone. Albert the Great was an idiot. He was made a genius. Well, God uses every type. Intelligent, stupid, every single type. If you only use stupid, then it'll be predictable. If you only use intelligent, it'll be predictable. But he uses all, according to his, however he wants to sprinkle his graces. So, but in any case, it's good. And then,
Did you notice in Bishop Williamson's, and just curiosity, his latest letter, he had all these quotes from the Bible, but he used not the duty ranger, his nature was the
he was using some weird edition. I noticed that. He said New American Standard Edition.
Yeah, that's
so what's he doing quote this? He knows better than that because I think English is his first language.
I think so.
Yeah, it was weird him quoting that standard.
So, yeah.
That's true, and it had some weird quote that we're all familiar with. And I think part of the problem is he wasn't a Catholic as a child. And so we memorized the scripture quotes when we were a child, and he probably didn't memorize those quotes. So we hear, he that is not with me is against me, he that gathereth not with me scattereth. That matters to us. It has to be said like that. But that's what we memorize. Everybody knows that's the Catholic version, right? Not just the Latin, but the English. We have the Catholic Douay Rheims version. And I think so many quotes. That I can't think of another common one. But the sower went out to sow seeds. But I can't. Common expression, and he used several common quotes there, but not the quote. What we're familiar with, right? It's true. It's very unusual. I don't know why he did that. what he said wasn't bad. If I remember correctly, it said something about suffer or something. What was the conclusion of it? It was,
I was quite taken back by the.
yeah, it was a strange. It was like using a Protestant translation. It wasn't a heretical meaning, but it was like using the. That's worse than the King James. At least the King James is better.
Yeah. But the whole thing seemed a little bit lazy to me. It was just, write a little bit, use all these quotes. And
Oh yeah, I know it's difficult because he writes every week forever. That's a very difficult thing to do.
it seemed like he was bored. So he just
Yeah.
wanted to get it out.
Yeah, I understand that, but that happens once in a while. It's no big deal as long as he's communicating the truth. And the question is now it's kind of you don't know what he's communicating. What is his message? What's his is what's he trying to get at? That's a big question mark in the last couple of years. I mean, what's your impression? You read the latest on comments and all that?
Yeah, and sometimes I get confused, like this, like a tree that can have bad fruits and good fruits.
Yeah, it's like it has both. Yeah, it's very unusual. It has both, kind of. Yeah.
Feels
Like
like
to be good fruit, everything has to be good.
Right.
It's a little bit of evil damages the whole. It's like
That's true.
a drop of poison on water.
That's correct. And there's really a question. If it's a mistake, then no big deal. Like, for instance, they say a priest in his first sermon, he's nervous. He's allowed 7 heresies. That's what they say. No shame, right? Because the nervous wreck gets up and says, 7 different heresies. He's allowed 7 heresies. But why? Because he's a nervous wreck and he's given the wrong quotes, applied to the wrong thing, and so on, right? So the what do you call it? But that's just a mistake. But if it's not a mistake, then it's your evil you're talking about. I mean, what was your
it
impression?
feels like he's running away from God's will. And he
Yeah.
made it very clear, I'm no Archbishop of Lefebvre, nor do I intend to be, when he was here.
He made that very clear, but it's not just I'm not going to be. More than that.
Yeah.
He's not going to allow it to happen.
Well, that's the sense I got, yeah.
It's more than, hey, I'm like, for instance, you want to help me push that car up the hill? Forget it, man, be my guest,
Yeah.
Forget it. But what about when you try to push a car up the hill, then I break your legs?
The church needs something.
See what I mean? That's different than just, hey, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
He does more than I'm not going to do it. He says that Archbishop Lefebvre made a mistake, and that is spreading throughout the resistance amongst the priests. And they're saying, well, Archbishop Lefebvre did make a mistake. And what was his great mistake? He put too much authority in the superior general and made the society too structured. Now, just use logic. If Archbishop Lefebvre made a mistake in establishing a structured society with a superior general at the top, what does that mean? In 1970, what did he do? When he founded the SSPX.
Right against it,
What is it?
Created a struggle.
I know. And was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I say the same thing.
No. But if you say Archbishop Lefebvre made a mistake in putting too much authority in the superior general and establishing too tight of a structure,
Yeah.
therefore,
He didn't know what he was doing.
he made a mistake when he established
That's
the SSPX.
Should never have done it.
Therefore, the SSPX equals a big blunder in the history of the church.
Well, so did the church itself, because the Pope has so much authority.
Well, more importantly, it's Christ who made the mistake.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, because he gave not just the Pope, but the bishops. You know what we say about the bishop? The Pope doesn't give authority to the bishop. God said 2 times, who sins you shall forgive, they are forgiven them. What do you call it? It's twice. And not forget the keys. Power of the keys is said twice.
Yeah.
Matthew 16:18, Matthew 18:18. Matthew 18:18 is to all 12 apostles. Matthew 16:18 is to Peter. So Peter has the power of the keys to bind and loose on earth. The apostles have the same power as the Pope, but the only difference is it's localized. It's the only difference. And in fact, the way the fathers tell us is that a bishop does not receive authority from the Pope. All the Pope does is say, use your power here. And he can say, no, you can't use your power here. So it's in practice, it's a very similar thing. But it's like, our idea is that he puts the engine inside the bishop, he puts the fuel inside the bishop, he puts the power inside the bishop, and then he says, use it. But that's not what the church says. No. Heaven directly gives power to the bishop. The Bishop of Toronto has direct power from heaven straight to the bishop, to the faithful. Only the Pope designates this is your diocese. And he has the power to pull that away. So bishops have a divine power, which priests don't have. And that's why the Pope is, you know, he's the highest of the bishops. He's the Bishop of Rome. And he has the power to shut down bishops, to create bishops, and to shut them down and to apply where their jurisdiction is. So this divine power is really heavy, much heavier than the power of a superior general. And it's been abused millions of times in the last 2,000 years.
Our Lord didn't make a mistake deciding out the structure for him.
Yeah.
Then we are very much obliged, maybe, to sacrifice and pray even more for our bishops, willingly,
Right.
than we are for the priests.
Right.
We have to sacrifice.
Well, I think what our Lord is asking
more
right
for
now,
our bishops.
I think what our Lord is asking, it's true, I think what our Lord is asking right now, we just have, are you willing to do the right thing without any backup?
Yeah.
Are we willing to do without any security? You don't know when the next Mass is going to be. I don't know when the next Mass is going to be, right? We don't know if there is going to be a next Mass. We don't know if there, I don't know, I've been in the seminary. We don't know if they're going to be ordained priests. We don't know if they're going to be ordained. We don't know how it's going to happen. And so what do? Are we ready to keep doing what's right, even without security? I think that's what our Lord is asking of us right now. You know, I think that's what's being asked. And, you know, God will provide a bishop. Maybe he'll convert Bishop Filet. Because, you know, if he gets fired and he's no longer the big cheese, and he gets crushed by Rome, which is exactly what they're going to do, right?
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe he'll get saved. He'll go to Billy Graham or what's his name, or you know, I got saved. You know, you never know, right? So God can raise up anybody, and the most logical choice would be Bishop Williamson. But he decided not to stand up in a strong and clear way in 2012, with the result of many souls not responding to grace. Even though many did, many did not. Because they're looking for the leader. It's all part of it. It's the nature of human nature.
Yep.
You've got to have a leader. There's no way around it. Like I mentioned an example last night or this morning. Remember in that Alive, when the soccer team crashed?
Yes. The movie Alive.
Was that 1970 or 60s?
I think it was 70s, early 70s.
You know, so they crashed in the mountains and they lived and nobody was going to come and get them. What did they do? The first thing they did was elect a superior. Because this is a matter of life and death. Somebody's got to make the decision. We're walking through the jungle that way. None of them had a compass. No one knew which way was north, south, east, or west. They had no idea which way civilization was. And nobody wanted to be the one to make the decision. Because it might be the road to civilization is right over that next hill. And this way it's 4,000 miles. So they don't know. Somebody's got to say, all right, we're going that way, even though I don't know. Somebody's got to make the final decision, and they got to say, all right, we're all thinking, I think we should go this way, or that way. I don't know. It's either right or it's straight. I don't know which one. All right, we're going straight. And tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, let's go. Somebody's got to say, let's go. And they go, all right, we're going, knowing that they might die. Several of them died, right? But they lived. They eventually arrived. But they knew they had to make a decision. And they knew somebody had to make a decision. And there had to be a leader in a life and death situation. We're in a life and death situation.
Absolutely.
There has to be a leader. And the leader is not, you know, Napoleon. The leader is not Julius Caesar. The leader is going to be chosen from one of the guys that survived the plane crash. The captain was a really great leader, but his face is through the windshield and he's splattered on that rock. So we're going to have to go to plan B. And so the fact is, so that see, you have to take the leader from amongst the individuals that you have.
Yeah.
There's no other way. I wish that they had a bunch of guys who were spelunkers and, you know, cross-country travelers and world adventures and, you know, knew everything about nature and what you could eat, what you couldn't eat. There was a bunch of soccer players.
Do they eat each other?
I think they did eventually,
They did,
similar to the Donner Pass thing.
Is that allowed in those circumstances?
I think it is. I think it is. That if
And
you
on Friday is considered meeting.
yeah yeah you get dispensation but no. So in fact, tomorrow is one of those Fridays where you can get a dispensation.
You can?
Because Easter, well, not Easter, Christmas is on Thursday, and you got the what do you call it, the leftover ham and all that kind of stuff. So tomorrow is one of the days where it was a custom to give a dispensation.
Oh, that's a Christmas.
Part of the reason why they gave a dispensation in the old days
Okay.
is because if they didn't, everybody's going to eat meat anyway. Okay. And so remember, it was mortal sin in the old days, so that it was very common. They usually gave a dispensation for that. Part of it was because, look, remember in the old days also, you couldn't just go and get, go to the fish. Now you can just go to Captain D's instead of going to McDonald's, right? But in the old days, it wasn't that easy. So before Vatican II and before the modern, so it was very common to give. It was almost, it's never a law. It's a dispensation given by the bishop or by the priest, but it was almost universally given in situations like Christmas is on Thursday, then you can eat meat on the Friday, the leftovers, and then on the feast days, like for instance St. Patrick's Day in the United States, you can eat meat, right? Because the Irish are going to do it anyway, and so and same thing with other feasts and other places, Immaculate Conception and so on. It's still the law. That's the reason for a dispensation. Dispensation is applied even customarily and universally. Like for instance, if Christmas is on a Friday, you can eat meat, right?
Yeah.
Well, the law still applies. It's a universal, customary
Do
dispensation.
you have to keep asking for it, or no?
With something like that, you really don't really need to, because it's a kind of a universal, customary dispensation, right?
So I want to
It's still a dispensation, but it's a universal, customary, right?
It's tradition.
Right, it's a tradition, right? With a small t. But a tradition with a small t counts. Like, for instance, you can't have, it's still forbidden to have a missal stand on the altar. It's against the law to have a missal stand on the altar, because you can't have furniture on the altar. You're supposed to have a pillow. Now, the problem with a pillow is, like, you're trying to, but you've got bad eyes, what do you do, stack the pillows and it falls off the altar, and so so for more than 100 years, maybe 200 years, people who missal stands on the altar. Forbidden. But the bishop never said anything about it, because probably the bishop had eye problems as well. And so the law still remains, it's forbidden, but by custom, it became a law. It's the rule of custom. So, and then what the church says about that is, when a custom has been done for 25 years, the bishop no longer has the authority to can it. He can't pull out the law that says it's illegal. It's still on the books, that it's illegal.
So Father, about that turkey or tomorrow, can we actually cook a turkey that we took out of the freezer?
Well, now we're getting into like
It's not leftovers.
613 precepts.
I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
No, if you're allowed to eat meat. So there's no.
It's not for me, somebody else wanted
No,
to.
but there's no poverty of matter, so to speak. There's no. If you can eat it, you can eat it. If you can't, you can't.
So
There's no
can she cook
the
it?
amount of meat. You eat less meat when you're allowed to eat meat.
Yes or no? Yes.
There's no
Okay.
other than.
Good now, Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's just a customary dispensation. It's universal, and you can always get a cranky padre who says, "Forget it."
Okay.
Right.
Now you can convince Christine.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can tell her now. I told her not to. And she thought she could.
Yeah, but normally it's theoretically it's leftovers from Christmas. That's the
We
theory
sacrificed
behind
our
it.
Christmas dinner
But
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
travel, so.
That's
Turkey
right.
that didn't get cooked.
Right. By the way, how many people live between? This is where people live. 'Cause, how many people live on this side of Toronto? You're on this side. You're also on this side. No, you live in America.
Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, so you're this side.
Sure.
Yeah, this is closer than Toronto by whatever, an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
But from here to the border, it's less than an hour, isn't it?
From here to the border, it's about an hour and a half.
What is
St.
it?
Catherine's is about 50 minutes, 40 minutes.
And then another 30 minutes past that.
Yeah.
Except you gotta go south to Buffalo. You don't go straight across Niagara Falls, whatever it is. Is it Niagara
No, I
Falls?
can. It's, Livingston or Peacebridge, doesn't really matter. At the same time.
Doesn't matter to you which one, it's the same. For getting to your home, it's the same.
Right, right.
Whichever one's got less morons on it is the one you
It's
have
about the
to
same either way.
take. No, and then St. Catherine, anybody in the St. Catherine's direction here? Because most of you are on Toronto side.
Sorry.
Oh, you live on the wrong side of Toronto, right?
We're way
You live on the other side, right?
Yeah, we're way up.
You live also north?
We live up by the martyr shrine.
Okay. You which side? You live on this side?
No, we live close to like 20 minutes from St. Catherine.
Oh, okay, you're on the road to St. Catherine's. Okay,
We're
okay.
east of Hamilton.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Towards Buffalo.
Aren't we east of Hamilton right now?
You're the representatives of St.
Well,
Catherine's.
now Hamilton was on the turn. I thought Hamilton was on the turn.
It's on the horseshoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought we were on the other side of the turn. Aren't we on the other side between Hamilton?
We're on the northern side.
We're not.
Oh, we're on the north side. So we never went through Hamilton on the way here.
We stay on the perimeter.
Okay, so we're on the north side. I got in my head that we're on the south. Oh, we're almost at Hamilton. Okay, okay. I got in our heads that we were over here.
What happened is that the lake is on the south side of the restaurant.
Basically, more or less, this is Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We do have three ladies coming from
Windsor.
Windsor.
For 3
So
hours.
they're
They're
the
like
furthest.
3-4 hours, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's Detroit, right?
Yeah,
Right.
pretty much Detroit.
Yeah, okay, right, okay, all right, yeah.
They want you to start a mass under their father.
I know, I've already tried actually, but they canceled the times, whatever, because I can only go on a weekend in which I get stuck. So I tried going twice now. But the places where I was going to go, they said, no, don't forget about it, you know. Who's from Windsor here? Somebody give me?
They left?
They left, okay. Do they live on the Canadian side or American side?
Canadian
Are
census.
they gone?
Yeah.
Oh, they left.
Okay. So you're St. Catherine, right?
No, I'm up in Barrie.
Yeah, we're up.
We're right north.
We're north.
The Martyr Shrine, I don't know where the Martyr Shrine is. No, that's on the other side. That's even further than you, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you
Further
went
than
down to
Silver
our
Fishing.
pilgrimage, Wiley, you'd know all about it.
Further than, because, okay. So you're north and west, east.
Yeah, we're north of Toronto.
Northwest.
No, just basically northwest.
Northwest.
Yeah, go north and left Toronto.
If we were going to society, we would go to Aurelia.
Okay.
About half an hour, 40 minutes.
Okay, so it took you an hour and a half to get here, 2 hours? 2
hours.
Yeah, we have quite a few 2-hour drivers in Sparta, New Jersey, but they go either way. Sometimes they go, we had somebody from, because they go from Pennsylvania, they go across that way. And, but of course things are so spread out around here. But this is isn't it about 60% of the whole population of Canada is here?
Yeah.
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 Isn't that right?
A third. A third of the population.
Third of the entire population of the whole country, right? Between St. Catharines and Toronto, right?
Yeah.
This whole area, right?
It's busy. We're from Vancouver.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then after that, Calgary is next, right? No, Montreal. Then Calgary, right?
Vancouver.
I think Vancouver.
Vancouver is bigger than Calgary.
It's Vancouver.
Vancouver's good. A lot of
Oh,
immigrants.
Calgary is bigger during the Stampede, but
Okay, I thought Calgary was the third biggest. Right.
Father, I have a question. I mean, two things I wanted to say. Father Fernando in Colombia, he has a seminarian that he's training.
Yeah.
So may I suggest if you and Father Hico have people willing to go to the seminary, just educate them, train them, teach them, and God willing.
Right. Right now we have we've had 20 past the doors already about that. We have about 11 there right now, or 12. But some are for the brotherhood, not for the priesthood. Maybe, so I'd say about 9 studying for the priesthood. And then we have 3 Nigerians who are on their way, 3 3 Brazilians that have been on their way forever, and then we have 2 from the Philippines that are on their way, and then we have there's actually there's a Polish priest who's trying to come over and visit, and just spend some time. A Polish priest from wherever, somewhere north, I don't know where, and so he's northwest Poland somewhere, and but we have to work on him. And then there's and then we have and then there's also Americans that want to be coming next year as well. And then remember, some are for the brotherhood. I'm putting them all together. They're going together in the same class. With some exceptions, like we have 2 lay brothers that are just doing work separately. But then we have the others. They're all in the class together. And then, and so with the brothers would not be, you know, strict on the grading or whatever, but they have to go through the, because they'll be teaching catechism and so on, and also, you know, working, you know, for the apostolate. And so we don't know what the future holds. Yeah, you know, but we have to continue. Yes.
So if Bishop Williamson doesn't approve of your seminary, is he really be willing to ordain them? If you
He basically tolerates. Doesn't approve, he tolerates. Right now, I would say probably not. But it's one of those things that he doesn't say yes and he doesn't say no.
God hasn't given him the grace because he hasn't put him in that situation yet.
Well, I mean, for minor orders and things like that, but he hasn't done that. Remember, there's 7 steps in the priesthood. There's 8 actually, because tonsure, and then porter, lector, hexes, acolyte, subdeacon, deacon, priest.
What's the highest in the seminary now, Father?
Right now?
What's the highest? You guys are subdeacons, or would there?
No, there's no subdeacons right now. We've got one duty ordained priest in June, but he's not going to be a Dr. Sanil. He's very good, but he's not going to be with us. He's going to be in India. And so he'll probably be ordained in India. He might be ordained in Kentucky, but probably be ordained in India or Philippines or England or something. Because I think that and that's assuming the bishop doesn't. Because the bishop, he might change his mind, but hopefully he doesn't. He's agreed to ordain him, but we'll see. Right.
Well, the bishop in India is going to ordain.
No, Bishop Williamson.
Okay.
He must be ordained in India. He could be ordained in Kentucky, but most likely India or, you know, England or wherever. Because I don't think he, you know, he's visited already multiple times. We've only done confirmations and talks and retreats, but he won't do the ordinations.
So unnatural for a bishop to not do ordinations.
Yeah. Well, again, he believes that the seminary is not the answer. See? But he wanted to ordain priests, but his idea is professionals, men of the world, and I don't think he's thinking of the consequences. Now he's getting ready to die.
Yeah.
Yes.
But imagine that you are a 30-year-old man,
Yeah.
25-year-old, 30-year-old, 35-year-old guy, and you're going to be ordained a priest. And now you're ordained a priest because Bishop Williamson ordained you last Saturday. Now you got to go find a parish. And you're going to be like this priest who's just a vagabond traveling around. If one of those priests shows up here, what are you going to do? What are the faithful going to do? Are they going to accept it? Chances are pretty slim, right? And what happens to those priests? Because sedevacantists have many of them. You know what happens to them? They become the slaves of whatever people own them.
Yes.
They become like a little dog, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's provided.
Right?
Yeah.
So they'll go to those sedevacantists priests. Many of them are not sedevacantists. They're actually sedevacantists because their owner is a sedevacantist. And because if they don't obey their owner, they go in the streets. And if they decide to become padre and start running the parish, like for instance saying, we don't want these flowers on the altar, that's it. They're gone, right?
I got you.
It's called lay investiture.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Very few of the priests can overcome it, but that's because of their personalities or because there's, you know, they can outmaneuver the guy that's trying to enslave them. But that's not how you work, right?
No. You're supposed to be the shepherd.
People do the shepherd. And then what happens is even if the guy who's the owner is a nice guy, people know that this priest is the priest of that guy.
Yeah.
And if he is ever not obedient to that guy, he's gone. That's the danger, for instance, what's happening right now to Father Girard. He's going to become the priest of
I don't
Vancouver.
think so. We came from there. He's got a pretty big publish on his parish.
No, but the problem is that you can't change nature, you see.
No, but they listen to him.
No, they do now, but be
they
patient.
Because we were with them.
I know that, but that's because he was with the society for many years, right?
Yeah. Well,
Now, but if it continues and continues and continues, one day, not today, not tomorrow, right? Somebody is going to have more influence than somebody else.
Yeah, that was not.
It's human nature.
what about yourself, Father?
Myself, what happens is this. With the same danger, of course, is there. But with us, what's very important is, that's one reason why it's important to have, one of the practical reasons why it's important to have missions.
Yeah, you know,
It's very, very important to have multiple missions, because when you have multiple missions, then it becomes more clear. Not only that, but an organization. So that even though we're small, we're an organization. There's a superior,
Hierarchy.
there's a hierarchy, I'm the superior, Father Hugo is under me, Father Boyd comes and helps out. Father Gerard came and helped out for a while. And then other priests come and helped out, so most of them short term. Or they help only in limited areas. But what happens is that then, because the problem of lay investiture is a very deep problem nowadays. Bishop Williamson told Father Gerard, make a contract. Now, when you make a contract, that's a very dangerous thing. For instance, he told me he's got a contract where he's going to see Mass there every single Sunday, and that he's made the contract with the people they're going to have Mass every Sunday. So I tried to get him to come over here, try to get him to go to Quebec. He won't do it.
It's true, he signed a contract to lease that building every Sunday.
No, that's a practical, that's nothing. That's just renting. That means nothing.
Sure. But
That's just a practical, that's nothing. That's no big deal. And he's also got a beautiful
Well,
altar
he
set up.
said,
I built
when he
the
left,
altar.
he said, you know, if you wanted me here, there's people who want me across Canada. I don't have to stay in Vancouver. I need to know, I don't earn money. So I need to know that you will be supporting your priests. I need to know what you can.
Right, well that's, I mean,
out so that
no,
I,
Father Gerard is
otherwise
very
I will
good.
go and I won't stay.
But again, that's kind of, we got to have confidence in providence, you know. God will provide. Father's got the faith. He's got the true faith. And he's teaching the truth. So he'll always be taken care of, you see, as long as he does that. And he'll always have problems, of course. We're always going to have problems, you know. You're going to have original sin problems, and human nature is human nature. You're going to have parish problems, and the choir and the servers hate each other, and this guy brought the green flowers. And every parish has usually a World War III crisis over flowers. I thought about banning flowers. But to say there's every parish, at some point, there's a World War III crisis over flowers.
Stupid.
Are you allowed to have fake flowers on the altar?
Well, you can, but that's another crisis. You know, but no, I hate fake flowers. It's allowed, though. It's allowed. But it really shouldn't do that.
This phenomenon is not just something restricted to resistance. I saw it in the Toronto parish. That there were certain families, because when I worked at the church for...
Yeah, it's human nature.
Well, there was
It's
one
happened to kings,
situation
right?
where I was invited to some place along with the priest. I didn't want to go because they didn't quite like the people. But the priest said, you must obtain the favor of this family. Or
Yeah, that
else I
happens.
would-
That happens. But remember, it's happened to kings, right?
Yeah.
Human nature is human nature is human nature. Original sin is original sin. You know, and it's happened that, you know, kings are controlled by the local rich duke, or even Rasputin. Tsar Nicholas was basically controlled by Rasputin because he had a sick kid, and mommy liked Rasputin because Rasputin was keeping the kid from dying, and then daddy had to survive by making mommy happy, and so Rasputin ran the empire. That's why the Russians tried to kill Rasputin. And they thought that by killing Rasputin, Russia would be alright. Now, it's too late, you know.
If I will listen, you mentioned it, Father Gruner, and what's in with him? He had this great, a huge presentation, invited people like Ron Paul, Monsignor Pelé and stuff, and then I saw him at the confirmations.
Right, basically, Father Gruner, he supports the resistance. I visited him, he supports me, he supports Father Hugo.
But he's also...
He kind of supports everybody. But the thing is, remember, Father Gruner is kind of a little bit of a space cadet, right?
Yeah.
Right? If he walks from here out, there's a 60% chance he's going to make it through one of those doors. Right? I mean, he could end up out the window, into the wall. You know, he's Father Gruner, you know, right? You know, so every day you don't know when he's going to say Mass, you know. And he never, ever knows that you should put the Mass kit together, right? So every single day, where's the candlesticks? Because he's traveling all the time. Where's the candlesticks? Did somebody find the crib? Where's the chalice? Where's the paten? Where's the altar? Like, he just all goes every day. Some of it's just Father Gruner's nature, because he's so thinking about the Fatima Apostolate, and he's so much of a... He's an unusual God, right? But he does hold the truth, and I have a good conversation with Father Tim and my brother and I. We have many talks with Father Gruner. He does hold the truth. He's got the faith. He doesn't believe in modernism. I think he's making an error in practical judgment, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to, you know, get them to, through Fatima, come to tradition.
Yeah.
And that's good, but in order to do it, he's like being quiet about the Latin Mass.
Yes.
And that's really not good. Like when he came to India, he had 400 priests. And of course, he always has to do it in such a way that I was busy. I couldn't. He came to Madras, and I was in Madras at the time. And I had to be going. He comes at like Holy Week or, he always schedules. I forget what the season was, but I had to be in like 10 different places at the same time. I was able to visit them briefly and talk about the greater and so on. But he said the Latin Mass. He had them say they were saying the new Mass, and he was trying to talk to them about the Latin Mass. Vatican II was evil and all that sort of thing. And then he was trying to get them to come to tradition and get at least put in devotion with Lady Fatima and all their parishes in India. And but you see, I think having them say the new Mass there, well, they shouldn't have done that, right? And then he had a high Mass. Some of them didn't even know he was saying the Latin Mass because he said it privately. Then he had one public Mass with Father Perez or something like that. So he wasn't clear. So I think he was trying to do the indirect. He's 100% against the new Mass. He's 100% against Vatican II. He's 100% against all the liberalism in Vatican II. He accepted his grave error, but he's thinking of it like an apostolic approach, and I think that's where he's making his mistake. I think he's making a mistake there.
It's not coherent.
Yeah, but he's trying to because he's got a problem because he's trying to get Novozona bishops to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Mary. And he knows that once they do that, then the problem's solved. But if he goes and talks about Lumen Gentium and what do you call it, Humane Vitae, and that's another horrible document. Which Whitman said was a good one a couple of weeks ago when he was here. What was it? Was that here? He said Humane Vitae was good. Where was it? It was recent. That was here. Where did you say that? It was very recent. It's talking about Humane Vitae was good. But the thing is, with Humane Vitae, it's NFP, it's wrong theology, order of marriage, it's the only good part of it is against, what do you call it?
Artificial things.
Yeah, it's against artificial contraception, which of course is good, but many pagans are against that,
Some people have been
You see what I mean?
talking
It's the
about
natural law, right?
Yeah, I know. We're
Some
holding
people have
back
been
a
talking
tsunami
about-
right now.
Excuse me?
We're holding back a tsunami in there.
Oh, tsunami, yes.
Yes.
The kids are getting hungry.
Oh, okay, we can say the prayer here, and they got fiddles in there?
No, we can bring some to them.
No, the kitchen is behind you.
Oh, okay, well then we'll just say a prayer, they can go and get the
Okay.
brothers.